You can pick it up from the trash. That's where you belong, Adana said aggressively as she pushed Femi to the ground and threw the plate of food right into the dustbin. I don't know why a little boy like you would search people's dustbins. The next time I see you here, I will release our dogs on you, Adana continued as she stormed into their gated mansion. With tears in his eyes, Femi stood up from the ground and began searching the trash for the plate of food Adana had just thrown away. Adana was a privileged child who had never experienced poverty. She didn't know anyone poor, nor had she seen someone who couldn't afford food. Femi ran to his mother with the food he had just gotten for the day. That day marked 1 year since she had been sick and unable to go to the local market to sell thrifted clothes, the business that had provided food for her and her son since her husband passed away. When her husband died, his relatives took everything he owned, leaving her and Femi to suffer. 2 days later, Adana walked out of her parents' gate again with a big plate of food for the trash. This time, Femi had been sitting at their gate since morning. He ran up to her and pleaded, "Please. Please. Are you going to throw away that food?" "Yes," Adana replied curtly. "Please, can I have it? I haven't eaten in days," Femi begged. "No. It's my food, and I can do whatever I want with it," Adana snapped as she stretched her hand to throw the food into the dustbin. "Just a grain, please," Femi begged again. "It would make me happy if you didn't trash the food and just gave it to me." As Femi reached out to grab the plate, Adana, upset that his filthy hands touched hers, pushed him to the ground and spat on him. "Don't you ever touch me, you poor, filthy thing. You can always pick it up from the trash as usual," she barked as she walked away. Femi stood and hurriedly searched the dustbin for the food. He knew his mother was very hungry and didn't want to keep her waiting for long. Midway through searching, a car horn at the gate startled him. "Hey, little one. What are you looking for in the dirty dustbin?" a voice filled with concern called out from the car. Adana's mother, Miriam, had returned home, driving one of her luxurious cars. "Please don't pick things from the trash, they are bad for your health," she said gently. "Don't worry about me, Ma. I just want to pick up this plate of food," Femi replied as he grabbed the food. "Oh. Are you hungry?" Miriam asked. "Yes," Femi replied. "Then hold on. I'll go inside and bring you a large portion," Miriam said kindly. "Are you sure?" "I would really appreciate that," Femi said, his face lighting up with joy. This was the first time a stranger had offered him food. "Yes, I'm sure. Please just wait for me here," Miriam replied before driving into the compound. She returned shortly with a large portion of food and handed it to Femi. "Oh my God, all this for me. Thank you, Ma. I haven't eaten in days, and I can't believe this food is for me." "May God reward you," Femi said with gratitude. "Where are your parents? Why do you search for food in the dustbin? Would you like me to help?" Before Miriam could finish her sentence, Femi ran off with the food. Miriam was shocked and confused, wondering why the boy would run instead of answering her questions so she could help. Feeling unsettled, she decided to follow him. Hiding by a broken fence, she watched as Femi entered a thatched house down the street. "Mama, please eat some more so you can take your medicine," Femi urged as he fed his mother, who lay weakly on a mat outside their house. "This sickness has gotten worse because you haven't eaten in days. Please eat enough so you can feel better. I don't want you to die. You're all I have left in this world." Overwhelmed with tears, Miriam remembered when her family couldn't afford to eat. She had grown up in poverty, the daughter of a poor farmer and a mother who fried bean cakes to sell on the dusty village streets. On bad days, they went to bed hungry. Returning to the moment, Miriam watched as the plate of food was emptied. She quietly walked home, determined to give Femi enough food and money to cater to himself and his sick mother the next time she saw him. 3 days later, Adana walked out of the gate with another plate of food. Femi was already waiting. Please, please don't throw away the food, he pleaded, running up to her. You again. What do you want? I've told you several times to stop coming here. Do you want me to call the dogs to chase you away? Adana shouted. Please don't be upset. I'm really hungry, Femi said, his voice trembling. I haven't been here for 3 days because I didn't want to upset you, but I've already searched the bins in the neighborhood, and no one has thrown away food today. Wait, you poor beggar. Can't your parents buy you food? Or are they as lazy as you are? Adana asked rudely. Please, I'm begging you. Just give me even a grain of rice to take home. I'll appreciate it, Femi said softly. No. I won't give you anything, so you better leave, Adana snapped. Femi tried to catch the plate as she threw it into the trash. As his hand brushed hers, she slapped him across the cheek. Why did you hit him? Miriam asked angrily as she stepped out of the gate. She had been hearing the commotion and decided to check. Mommy, he's a beggar who always comes to scatter our trash, Adana said arrogantly. Don't you dare say that, you spoiled brat. This is the food I told you not to throw away. Why did you trash it? Miriam demanded. Mommy, I was done eating it. I can't understand why you asked me not to trash my leftovers, Adana replied. People are hungry, and you call this large portion of food leftovers. Miriam scolded. Mommy, but no one in the house eats leftovers. Who were you keeping it for? Adana asked, her voice tinged with confusion. It's none of your business, Adana. You have to do as I say, Miriam replied sternly. But he doesn't deserve any pity. He's just a dirty beggar, Adana muttered under her breath. Adana, it is very wrong to call people beggars just because you are privileged, Miriam said firmly. At this point, Femi, not wanting to waste time listening to their argument, dipped his hand into the trash, picked out the plate of food, and ran off. You see, this is all your fault. Now he has run off with food from the dustbin, Miriam said, visibly upset. Well, Mommy, if he picks food from the dustbin, it's because that's where he belongs, Adana replied smugly. Don't you ever say that again. Was this how I raised you? So, because you have food, you think you are better than him. Let me tell you something, you are not better than anyone. Well, I am better than him because I have never picked food from a dustbin, Adana replied defiantly. What? Miriam exclaimed, shocked at her daughter's arrogance. She took a deep breath, visibly trying to calm herself. You know what? I will teach you a lesson today. After this, you will learn to never insult people because you were fortunate to be born into a rich home. Without another word, Miriam grabbed Adana's hand, led her to the car, and drove her to the part of town where she had grown up. Adana had never seen anything like it. The houses were small and crumbling, with tin roofs patched together with scraps. Children ran barefoot in the dusty streets, their clothes worn and tattered. Miriam stopped the car outside a small, dingy house and turned to her daughter. You will stay here for 2 days, Miriam said firmly. What? No way. I can't stay here. Adana protested, her voice rising in panic. You will stay here and learn what life is like for people who don't have the privileges you take for granted, Miriam said, her voice leaving no room for argument. Adana glared at her mother but knew better than to argue further. Miriam left her in the care of an old woman she knew from the neighborhood, promising to return after 2 days. The next morning, Adana woke up to the sound of roosters crowing and children crying. She was given a simple meal of maize porridge, which she found hard to swallow, and was asked to fetch water from the communal well. The line was long, and the bucket was heavy. For the first time, she understood how hard life could be. When Miriam returned to pick her up, Adana was exhausted, hungry, and humbled. She climbed into the car without a word, tears streaming down her face. The morning after their return, Adana packed lots of food from her mother's kitchen and waited for Femi outside the gate. She felt ashamed and embarrassed by her past behavior but was determined to make amends. When Femi didn't show up at his usual time, she grew worried. She waited for hours, but he was nowhere to be found. Just as she was about to give up, she spotted him walking down the street. "Femi! Femi!" she called, running up to him. Femi stopped and turned to her, his face expressionless. "Hi," Adana began hesitantly. "I've been waiting for you. I was worried you might not come today. Please, I'm sorry for how I treated you before. I didn't know you and your mom were suffering so much. Please forgive me. I brought you all this food, hoping you and your mom could have 3 good meals today." Femi looked at her, his eyes filled with sadness. "I hold no grudges against you," he said softly. "But as for the food, there's no need for it. I don't need it anymore." "Why?" Adana asked, confused. "My mom died yesterday from a stomach ulcer caused by prolonged hunger," Femi said, his voice heavy with grief. "I'll be leaving tomorrow to work on my uncle's farm in the city. You can keep your food." Adana stood frozen, tears streaming down her face as she watched Femi walk away. She fell to her knees, overcome with guilt and regret. She knew her cruelty had played a part in his mother's death.